Ladies and gentlemen, it's good evening in Slovenia and it's noon in America. For those who don't know me, I'm Aleš Ernecl. I'm editor-in-chief of Politika.si. I used to be editor-in-chief of NTA, Slovene National um, um, Press Agency, and my guest tonight is infamous, famous Jesse Lee Peterson, a pastor, an author, a podcaster, and an activist for rebuilding the man. Dear Mr. Peterson, thank you for accepting my invitation.
Absolutely. I appreciate you. Thanks for having me on. And by the way, happy Men History Month.
Yeah.
Did you know that August is men's history?
August is men's, and this is also my month because I have a birthday on the 2nd of August. I didn't
Right
know
on.
that.
Happy birthday. Amazing.
Thank you for this in the very beginning.
August is an amazing time to be born. You were born on Men History Month. It doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, I come from Slovenia. This is ex-Yugoslavia. This was a communistic country, and we always thought, at least for 20 years since the independence, that the fact that the most of our intellectuals are still left-wing is the consequence of us being communists for so many decades. But then we used to start binge watching American alternative podcasts on YouTube and so forth, yours amongst them, and we could see that America is not so far away from communism.
It's mind blowing. Yeah, I'm surprised that our country is becoming a socialist communist society. I used to hear people say that was possible, but I did not think it was possible in America. But it is possible. And not only is it possible, it is happening. And we got to stop it. We can't let this happen.
But is there... Okay, let's start from the beginning. The majority of Slovene intellectuals are left-wing, and they read the British Guardian, and they read American New York Times, and listen to and watch CNN, all this left-wing, basically communist media, and they would probably also not believe that there can be a black man that considers himself a conservative, a Republican even, and so forth. My first question to you would be, why does the left, the American left, that is, and some of your fellow black people, why do they call you Uncle Jesse, and what does it mean?
They call me Uncle Tom, and they call me the N-word. Well, the reason is because the Democratic Party controlled most black people, and they took over the blacks during the so-called civil rights movement. One of the worst things that happened to black people was the civil rights movement, because prior to the civil rights movement, black people were individuals. They thought for themselves. They did for themselves. They had families. They didn't have any black leaders or anything like that. And I grew up in Alabama on a plantation under the Jim Crow laws. But at the time, the blacks knew that the Jim Crow laws were about the Democratic Party, and that the Democratic Party didn't want black people to be a part of it. And so they understood it. That's why they started the Republican Party. Blacks and whites started the Republican Party because blacks could not be a part of the Democrats. It wasn't about race, and it wasn't about color. It was about power. And so they started the civil rights movement, which should have never happened. It was a horrible, evil thing to happen, because at that time, the so-called civil rights leaders put themselves up as leaders of the blacks. And then they sold the blacks over to the Democratic Party under Lyndon B. Johnson. They said, the Democrats said, okay, if you let us have the blacks, we would let you be their leaders. And they agreed to it. And it's just been downhill. They gave blacks free welfare, free everything. And ever since that time, they have been owning the black people. And so any black person that's not a part of that thinking and relying on the government and blaming others, they call you a sellout or Uncle Tom, the N-word, because you're not a part of the tribe. You're an individual thinker. You're an American and not a part of the losing people and blaming others the way the blacks are doing.
I saw a clip with the basketball player LeBron James, where he was supposed to be reading the biography of Malcolm X. So if you compared Malcolm X and the so much beloved persona of Martin Luther King, could be your favorite one, or at least the smaller the smaller evil of those two?
That's a very interesting question, man. Because at one time I had a lot of respect for Martin Luther King, and I thought that he wanted blacks to be free, but to be able to just move about, change the law so they can move about or whatever, right? But I'm not sure about that now. I think Martin Luther King, well, I think he helped set up the blacks to become losers by selling them over to the Democratic Party. Whereas with Malcolm X at one time was a part of Islam, and he was angry, and he believed a lie that white people were holding blacks down and white people hated the blacks and all that. But when he went to Mecca and he saw that white and blacks and everybody were getting along, he had a change of heart. And he came back to America and he realized he had been lied to about Islam, and that this battle was not about what they had told him. And so he no longer hated all white people, and he tried to warn the blacks that they were being taken over by the Democrats and others, and that they needed to start thinking for themselves. And so I gained a lot of respect for Malcolm X when he admitted that he was wrong. But I never did hear Martin Luther King come back and apologize for selling the blacks to the Democratic Party. So I have a lot of respect for Malcolm X, and I'm not sure about Martin Luther King Jr. anymore.
How could it be that so many people of your generation, whites and blacks and Asians and also Europeans and Slovenes, how is it possible that all those people seem not to know anymore which party was the party of slavery and which party was the party that conquered,
Yeah.
basically conquered the slavery?
Either they are afraid to say it or they don't remember. I know a lot of people have a lot of fear now. And if they disagree with the radical blacks and the radical Democrats, white liberals, that they are afraid of losing their jobs. They're afraid of losing something, right? And so I think that they know, but they're afraid to speak up, especially the whites. With most of the blacks today, not all, but most black people are just angry. They are evil. They have no love. And so they just hate everybody, and they're not going to tell the truth about what's happening. But they know the truth. My generation of blacks, they know the truth, but most of them are afraid. I think they're afraid to say it, or they just hate white people anyway. And they are blaming everybody for their failure. It's crazy. I think it has more to do with just having hatred in their heart. They have no love.
This is a question I'd probably really have hard time to discuss with left wingers and academics and probably the majority of people, but I know I can ask you, is it wrong to say that America was not only founded on the idea of liberty and classical liberalism, but that it was also a country founded by Anglo-Saxon white people? Is this
You know,
a wrong thing to say?
no, not at all. As a matter of fact, we just celebrated our 4th year of July. July is White History Month, and we just celebrated our 4th year. I started it 3 years ago, and we just celebrated. And the reason we celebrated white history is because in America they celebrate Black history, which doesn't exist. They celebrate Mama history, homosexual history, Indian history, Asian history, everything but white history. And we all know that America was founded by white Christian males. They went through hell to create the greatest country on this side of heaven. If there wasn't for those white men who founded and created this country, there would be no America. It would not be. And they were Christians, and they believed in God, and that's why they created a Christian country, because they believed in God, and God made it possible through them. And I don't want the people to forget that. This is a country that was founded and created by white people, and they can pretend that it's not true. That's on them, but we can't go along with the lie. And the reason that they're doing that is because they have a socialist communist mentality, and they want to turn America into a socialist society. And so they're pretending that these great men, white men who founded America, were Christians. They built a great country, a great constitution. They believed in God, country, constitution, the family. They believed in individuality. They believed in freedom. And the liberals, the socialists, they want to control people. And that's why they're pretending these men were white supremacists, they were racist. And it's just not true. And we're reminding people every year now and every day that that's not true. If it wasn't for white people, there would be no America. And if you notice, Black people don't build anything, they destroy. They're begging, they're whining, they're blaming, they're killing, they're destroying. They turn nice neighborhoods into ghettos. They're not free thinkers. They think as though they live in a tribe. It's about their color, not their character. And we can't let those folks take over our country. If they do, they would turn this entire country into a ghetto. So we got to remind people that it was white people who founded this country, and it has nothing to do with racism.
No, a Democratic Party has this cliche interpretation of what a black voter should be.
Yeah.
How do you yourself differ from this interpretation? How do the majority of so-called black conservatives differ from this cliche interpretation of a black voter? What do
Most
you
black
know more?
most black conservatives are independent thinkers. They don't just go along with the okie doke. I happen to grow up at a time when I remember when black people were not tribal thinkers. They believed in God. They wouldn't even let you play as a little kid. They wouldn't let you play with other bad black kids because they knew that the battle was about good and evil, right versus wrong. They believed in the family. And when I was growing up, it was an embarrassment to have children out of wedlock. Abortions was unheard of in the black community. But today, because of that tribal mentality and the lack of moral values, most black people, not all, but most, not all, but most black people are immoral. They have no sense of shame. They are very angry and violent. They blame everybody else. But there are a few black conservatives who are free thinkers, and they're not going along with the okie doke. They have not fallen into the trap. It's not about your color, really. It's about character. It's about right versus wrong. No matter what the color is, it has nothing to do with our color. It's a spiritual battle. It's a battle between good and evil, right versus wrong. And most black people are on the side of evil, and they'll be used by the evil, radical, liberal, white Democrats in order to bring down America because they know black people are not going to stand for what is right. They will only support you when you're wrong.
When Democrats or left wingers hear your argument, the biggest problem with black communities is having children out of wedlock. They say that this is the consequence of CIA or some intelligence agencies bringing crack with bad faith into black communities. Is there anything true about this?
No, because I often ask them, okay, let's pretend that the CIA brought crack into the black community. What was wrong with the black people? They took the crack. It would have to be something wrong with. They didn't take the crack and force it down your throat. It would something would have to be wrong with you for you to do drugs. But they still want to blame somebody else for that. They take no responsibility for themselves. The reason that the blacks are on drugs and doing all those things because years ago during the civil rights movement, they took the fathers out of the home. They replaced the father with the government check, with welfare, free stuff. And they told the black women that you're wonderful. You don't need a man. We're going to take care of you. And so the fathers left the home and the government became the daddy of the family, and the so-called black leadership like Jesse Jackson and the NAACP, the Congressional Black Caucus, they became the head of the people. So the blacks stopped thinking for themselves. They stopped believing in God and they believe in the government. And that's why anytime you want to control a family or a country or a community, you have to get rid of the man. And once you get rid of the man, it's easy to control the women and children because women don't have power. They don't have authority. They have to have somebody to take care of them and show them how to think logically because women are illogical thinkers. They don't have sound minds. So when they remove that man from the family, they remove God from the family. And Satan took over. And that's why most black women are out of control. They're angry. They're mean. They're nasty. Because they didn't love their fathers. They were turned away from their fathers. And in return, they've been turned away from God. And that's why each generation of blacks are getting worse rather than getting better, because Satan is the woman's God and the God above is the man's God. And so that's why women hate men, because they hate the image of God. And so that battle is between men and women because women hate the image of God. And that's what's happening right now in the world.
Is that why they've been shaking their asses in such a satanic manner?
Yeah, because they're filled with hatred in their hearts. The black women need the black men to take over and turn them back to God by causing them to forgive their father. Their mothers turned them away from their fathers and recreated the man in their image. And that's why I say that any male, I don't care where you are in the world, any male that has anger is a woman. He's become like his mother. He has his mother identity because it's abnormal for a man to be angry. A man is not angry, naturally angry. A man is logical. He deals with things in a patient way, but an honest and a strong way. But if he has anger, he has the woman illogical mindset. He has to overcome that and return to his father so that he can develop a logical mindset rather than an illogical mindset. Most men think like women because they think like their mothers.
Okay, next question is related to this topic. Police on black crime, police on white crime, black on black crime, black on white crime. Is anything about the Black Lives Matter narrative true? Are they rightfully pissed off, or is this everything a part of Marxist pseudo or quasi-Marxist theater?
There is nothing true about Black Lives Matter. Nothing. Black Lives Matter is a far left liberal radical communist Marxist organization that was founded by a bunch of fat black radical lesbians. And those lesbians, they hate God, they hate the man, they hate the nuclear family, they hate unborn children. They even said they were trained to be radical Marxists like that, right? And so I'm surprised and stunned that anyone with any common sense would follow a bunch of fat black radical lesbians. That alone should be enough, right? It's not about police brutality. If black people obeyed the cops when they're stopped, if they didn't break so many laws, they wouldn't be stopped by the cops. The cops are there to protect the good from the bad, right? And so Black Lives Matter made up that lie in order to manipulate and control the people to make wealth, money, and power for themselves. And just think about this. In America, they are tearing down the statues and monuments of the great white men who founded the greatest country in the world, and they're replacing them with people like George Floyd. George Floyd was an unemployed Black drug addict with a criminal record, and George Floyd is dead because of George Floyd, not because of some cop, but because of George Floyd. So they take down the statues of the great men who founded the country and put the statue of a drug addict up, an unemployed drug addict, and they want us to pretend like that's something good. That's evil. Black Lives Matter is worse than the KKK could have ever been in America. They make the KKK look like angels sent by God. I can't believe people would follow a bunch of fat Black radical lesbians with bad hair. It doesn't make sense. But the men are weak and people are afraid. It's not true. They're no good. They're evil.
By weak, you mean beta?
Beta males. Anybody that follow any male that follow Black Lives Matter is a beta male. And any male that listens to a woman is a beta male. This is not the way it's supposed to be. The world is not running well because the men are weak.
But what if women are too strong and you then can't get no women to marry because you're too strong of a man, because you don't want to listen to her, and she then goes and finds some betas to marry.
That's fine. Be glad that she's not your wife, because she will destroy you. And by the way, there's no such thing as a strong woman. That's not true. It's just weak men, but no such thing as a strong woman. And I've been telling men, do not, never, ever, ever marry a woman that's educated, because a woman that's educated is on an ego trip, and she thinks she's equal to a man, and she would never make for a good wife and a good mother. And so men should not marry women like that, because you're going to be in competition, and eventually she's going to make you become the wife and the mother of the children, and she'll go out and pretend to be the man. Educated women are on ego trips. They would never make for a good wife and a mother. Okay, women are not equal to men, and women are not strong. Women need men. There's an order to life, and that order is God in Christ, Christ over man, man over woman, and woman over children. But because most men hate their mothers imposed their will on them when they were little boys and turned them away from their fathers. The woman became the man's God, because when you hate your mother, you hate all women, and they become your God. But if you go and forgive your mother for turning you away from your father, then God will forgive you and bring you back to your natural order. And that order will reverse, where the man will be over the woman instead of the woman being over the man. Then you would not be afraid to deal with a woman the way you're supposed to. And women want men to guide them, but men are weak. They don't understand how to overcome the nature of the woman. They must return to the fathers. And fathers love their children. And when they leave the household, they don't leave their children. They leave the mothers of the children. But the mother would tell the children, oh, your father was an alcoholic. Your father was abusive. Your father was this and that. He didn't love you, right? But that's a lie. That's why you're not supposed to believe anything that the mother says about the fathers, because mothers lie. They never would admit, your father loved you. When he left me. He didn't leave you, but I was such a bitch. He didn't know how to deal with me, and I was wrong. The mothers are never going to admit to that. They always make it look like the father, because they want to control the children.
Okay.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it's quite amazing. In comparison,
did you grow up close?
What? If I grew up, what?
Did you grow up close to your father or your mother?
I do have some issues in this relations, although I grew up in a relatively happy family because I had both of them, and they are quite good people. Although I have some, I've had some issues with the fact that my mother always earned more than my father, for example. I had these issues, and it felt kind of in the process of them bringing me up.
And did you go and forgive your mother for turning you away from your father?
When you told that a couple of minutes ago, I was just thinking about it. I guess I didn't, and it's true. I do have some revolutionary spirit in me still,
Yeah.
um, and I have to get rid of it. I admit it. It makes
The
sense
only
what you just said.
Yeah, the only way you're going to overcome it, there's not but one way. You must go and admit to your mother, hey, I'm sorry for resenting you. You impose your will on me. You turn me away from my father. And as a kid, I resent you for that. I identified with you. And now I know that you turned me away from my father. And I'm sorry for hating you for that. That was wrong, but I'm wrong for hating you for it. Don't ask her for forgiveness. Don't ask her to apologize. You forgive her for resenting her, and God will forgive you, and He will turn you back to your original nature, your male nature, the one you had before your mother traumatized you. And forgive your father for not being able to protect you from your mother because he was married to his mama. Every man that refuses to overcome their mother, every woman they get involved with is mama. You become attracted to what you hate, but you can't deal with it because you never dealt with your mother. And and so and then eventually you end up becoming just like your father in the relationship. You become the boy and your wife become the mama, or you end up relieving the relationship. But if you forgive your mother for what she's done, just don't ask for forgiveness. Only God can forgive. You forgive her. I'm sorry for resenting you. And if she admits it, that's fine. If she started crying, that's fine. If she tried to blame your father, that's fine. And if she lay down and die, if she fall out on the ground and die, that's fine. You just look at her like, oh, she dead, and forgive your father for not protecting you from her. Your whole world would change, and no other woman will ever be able to control you. And you will have peace within. All the conflict will be over with. Fear and doubt and worry, and all that would disappear once you forgive your mother.
I agree with you. That's the path I'm gonna choose in the future. Thank you for this
Your
advice.
mother, I want you to know you're going to shake in your boots because you're afraid of what you hate. Whoever caused you to become angry, they also control you. You're afraid of them. So you're going to shake in your boots. So let yourself shake, and it'll be the last time you ever shake in your boots. Because and don't expect her to admit she was wrong. The hardest thing, the hardest thing, the last thing, the hardest thing that a woman could do is to admit that she is wrong. It's easier to pull a woman tooth with a pair of pliers without anesthesia. It is for a woman to admit that she's wrong because Satan is her daddy. She has a major ego. And the last thing that she can do is to admit that she's wrong. She'll blame everybody but herself. So don't expect your mother to admit anything. If she does, it's nice. If she doesn't, you forgive her and God will forgive you. And He would take your mother's identity away from you and give you back your identity. It'll be amazing.
Amazing advice.
Amazing.
Okay, next question. Do you believe the Republican Party betrayed Donald Trump in the last election? Were the last elections fraud?
Absolutely. Without a doubt. They betray him. That's why we got to vote out these rhino Republicans, and we got to vote in men who will put the country first, who are not afraid to stand up against the Democrats, whether they're black or white Democrats, male or female, who will fight back and who will work for the people and not against them. The rhino Republicans are no different than the Democrats. They're in there for power, this fake perception of power and wealth. They're not there for the people anymore. We got to vote them out. And Donald Trump, the great white hope, tried to change that, and they fought against him.
Basically, all I've done is keep my promise.
That's all he did. He kept his promise. But the rhinos, along with the Democrat and the media and the Never Trumpers, they hated the man because he is a straight white conservative Christian man, and he keep his promise. And he was cleaning out the fake Republicans and the Democrats, and they didn't like it. And so they went against him. And the voters know that too. So I think the next election, we're going to come back strong. And it's not over yet. The people know, they understand it's not over.
Yeah, a commentator, a viewer of Ossia says, I have a father and a mother, and when you make videos about gay preachers, and it's like amazing, and I think you make right way to blow them off with fallen state. Yeah, I remember that video you made with a gay preacher. Was that spontaneous? Were that spontaneous reactions, all of them, or was that? How do you get gay preachers on your show?
I have an amazing producer, Kelly. Kelly, she is my producer, and I'm stunned at how she gets these people on too. But what happened was we had the gay preacher on, and we were waiting to get rolling, right? And we were sitting there waiting. And there was a guy with him, and he introduced the guy to me in the audience that came with him, and he said, "Oh, something like," and I don't remember total exact what he said, but he said something like, "Oh, we are getting married," something like that. This homosexual preacher said that to me, right? And so during the show, I asked, "You're getting married? Who's going to be the wife and who's going to be the husband?" And when I asked that, he got pissed and he jumped up and walked away. I did not expect him to leave because I'm thinking that if he's proud enough to tell me he's getting married to a man, he should be okay with standing up for it. But he couldn't handle it. And he ran off, all ticked off because I asked who's going to be the husband, who's going to be the wife. He didn't like that. I was surprised.
He could have stood there and at least try to make an argument or something of why that's okay, at least
especially if he believed that he was doing the right thing. If he believed what he's doing is right, why not defend it? Why run off? But they can't handle anyone disagreeing with them because they know that they're wrong, and they have debt in their consciousness so that they don't have to admit that they're wrong. And anyone that opposes them, they can't handle that. So they have to either get angry and run, or they want to fight or whatever. They cannot handle the truth because they know that they're wrong. And that's why we have to love them enough, not hate them, don't agree with it, but we must be honest enough with them to tell them the truth.
Okay, so I won't take you too much time away from you because you have your men's conference you're organizing coming up. And I hope you will, in the last couple of minutes, you'll present it. I hope. So my last question: what's wrong with the church nowadays? By church, I don't mean just Protestant or evangelical churches in America. I mean Christianity in America in the broadest possible sense, because I won't force you to speculate about European problems with church.
Right.
Why does it seem similarly cucked as a Republican Party? And was Jesus a goddamn hippie?
What's wrong with the churches today in America? They are Bible thumpers. They know the Bible. They know about God, but they don't know him. They have not been born again of the Father. God said that there will come a day when I'll return the children to the fathers and the fathers to the children, right? You must be born again. All who are born of the woman are dying, and those who are born of the Father are living. And so the preachers have not been born again of God. They are no different than the intellectuals that in the secular world, the ones in the university. They know the Bible, but it only builds their ego. They don't know God. And so they're misleading in congregations. They have no power. They have no insight because they still have hatred in their heart. They're still angry, and they have not overcome their mothers. They must be born of the Father, and then you will see the power of the churches in operation. But the preacher men are no different than the secular professors in these secular universities. They know the letter, but they do not know the spirit of God. They must be born again. They have to overcome their mothers and return to the fathers. And most Black preachers and most Black churches hate white people too. They're no different than the secular Blacks. They have no love because they have not overcome. Salvation is about changing the heart from hate to love. That's why when you go and forgive your mother and forgive your father for not protecting you from your mother, God changed your heart from anger to love. And in that love, he draw you into the kingdom of heaven within, and he will cause you to overcome all this other stuff you pick up in the fallen state. And he will give you the power and authority to deal with the world in the right way. Because when you have perfect love, there is no fear. There is no doubt. There is no anxiety. There is no worry, no suicidal thought. You have perfect peace, and you see how to deal with everything. The churches don't have that anymore because the men are no different than the women. That's why you must be born again of the Father. That love that they feel, that emotional stuff, that's evil. That comes from hate. That's the woman's love. And there is no love. Women don't have love. They only have hate. And they have a false feeling of love. That's not love. That's all ego. Real love comes from above, through God, from God, through Christ, through the man, to the woman. And that's why you must return to the Father so you can operate from perfect love. And in perfect love, you can't feel it. You can't taste it. You can't touch it. You live by it. It's a light unto your feet. And the churches don't have that anymore. They know the Bible, but they don't know God. They are Bible thumpers.
I have to make this, just a moment. I have to make this very.
Anthony says that my mother is older than my father. His mother is older than his father.
Anthony P., my mom is older than my dad, and I realized she can't let him lead her because of that. She can't help but look down on him, and it resulted in a lot of problems in our family.
Yeah. A man should never, ever, 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 but never date or marry an older woman because that is his mama. And a man should always be older than the woman so he can lead her. Women are already on an ego trip and they don't want to obey the man, right? But you have a better chance of doing that, especially when you overcome your mother. You have a better chance of doing that than when you marry or date or get involved with an older woman, because she will become your mama. As a matter of fact, any male that is attracted to an older woman is really attracted to his mother. And so when he's having sex with an older woman, when he's living with an older woman, he really having sex and living with mama. And that's why his father could not handle his mother. So he needed to forgive his mother for turning him away from his father, and forgive his father because his father never overcame his mother, and he made his wife his mother. He couldn't help it, because if Anthony don't forgive his mother and father, he's going to end up in the same situation. You become like what you hate.
I've been eager to make this joke about Serbs and Slovenes. Mitch Marriage says, I'm Serb, but Slovenia was the civilized part of the former Yugoslavia. Yeah, we were the civilized part of the former Yugoslavia, and the Balkan countries were Africa of the Yugoslavia. But that's also why we Slovenes are similarly cocked to Anglo-Saxons in America. We're similarly cocked because we were too civilized, if I may make this.
Well, what I realize is that from interviewing different people that kind of understand what's going on, when white people around the world built great countries, they thought that other cultures would be thinking like them, that they saw themselves as individuals, that they would somehow or another believe in the same constitution and freedom. But those people don't think the way white people think. They think like a tribe. They're not individuals. And so you can't mix them up with the whites, because they're going to destroy it. They don't have any love. They don't think the same way. They're not capable of thinking for themselves. That's why once you return to the Father, you do become an individual a thinker. When I was growing up under the Jim Crow laws here in America on a plantation, I grew up as an individual thinker. I even as a kid, I never went along with the crowd because my parents were that way. My grandparents were not that way. When I moved to California, I believed into the lie from the so-called civil rights leaders that white people were against black people. And when I believed that lie, I started to think that way. But once I realized I had been lied to, I stopped thinking that way and I became an individual again. You must be an individual and not a tribe thinker. And that's how white people normally are. And they made a big mistake by allowing other people to enter into their country because they have destroyed the country. They hate the people that let them in and gave them freedom. They don't appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. We're already on 41st minute of our podcast. Please, can you tell us something about your upcoming men's conference? What is it about? Really
31 years ago, I started an organization called Bond, the Brotherhood Organization of a New Destiny. And what we've been doing is rebuilding the family by rebuilding the man. We're turning the men and women, but primary men, back to the fathers to overcome the mothers, right? So that when they do get married, the order of God will be there. God in Christ, Christ in man, man over woman, and woman over children. Then you have a better chance of having an amazing family until death do you part. And so we're turning them back. We tutor, we counsel. We have the best counseling service on this side of heaven. And we counsel by phone, Skype, or in-house. You know, you have to set it up. Also, we have an entrepreneur program where we're teaching men how to start businesses. And I started a credit union so that we can loan them the money and those who are part of the Entrepreneur Academy, and they pay it back with interest. This is our 11th year of holding men's conference. Every year we hold a men's conference for men only. And August 14th, 2021, we're having one down in Orlando, Florida, about, I guess, a week or two from now, Orlando, Florida. And it's for men only. And we have men coming in from around the world. They can go to our website at rebuildingtheman.com, rebuildingtheman.com, or jesseleepeterson.com, JESSE, no I, jesseleepeterson.com for tickets and more information about what we're doing. But things are not going to get better in the world until men take over again. You must come back because it's not in the woman's nature to lead. She's not strong. She's not a leader. Even in the home, she gets her instruction from her husband in raising the kids. It's not going to work any other way. We got to come back to the order of God in order for life to become amazing.
Yeah. One last question, please, because I'm from Slovenia. I have to ask you this question, and I didn't think of it by myself. This is how unpatriotic I am. I'm joking. Carlota Puig, he's a Catalan, and he asked me to ask Jesse about Melania. What does he think of her? What do you think about Melania?
Melania Trump?
Melania. Yeah.
Trump's wife?
Yeah.
She is amazing. Amazing. She loved her husband. She seemed to obey him. I'm sure he had to put her in a place sometime because women are so stubborn, but she seemed to love and obey her husband. And I'm sure after all this mess that the Great White Hope, you know, I call Donald Trump the Great White Hope, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure after all she's seen him go through and the way that he's endured it and dealt with it, that made her love him more, because women cannot help but love men who love what's right, who stand up. They don't allow the woman to control them. That draws women unto them. So I'm sure she loved Donald Trump even more so now, because he's gone beyond proving that he's a man. He's a man of God. He loves what's right. And so I have a lot of respect for what I know of her. I have a lot of respect for her.
Okay. I already said one last question, but this is the really last one. Will
No
Jesse ever be
problem.
broadcasting on apps, Instagram, Facebook, etc.?
Am I, Chris?
We don't do live stuff. We post on some of those, but we don't really do live stuff.
We post on some of those things, but we only do live stuff, right? Oh, we don't do live stuff on there. We're on YouTube and all that. We do post on those sites, but we have not been doing live stuff yet on those sites.
Dennis Dale asks, what was Jesse's slowest tea moment, to be honest?
What's a tea moment?
Dennis, what's a tea moment?
When were you the most beta male?
Oh, he means when I was the most beta male?
Yeah, if you ever were.
I used to be beta, believe me. I used to date a lot, right? I had a lot of sex. I used to think that I could not live without sex. Like I was so beta. And women, you would control me. Whenever I would break up with one woman, I would have to have another waiting in the West Wing. I could not just break up with one and go be free, right? I had to have another one. Because what it is, women are sex dealers and men are sex addicts. And when you hate your mother, you become attracted to what you hate. So you use women for sex. The same way a drug addict will use drug. And women are more than happy to give you sex because they control you with sex. And so I would break up with them and I felt like I lost my God. I would sit by the dock of the bed. I would take it really hard. But once I overcame my mother by forgiving her for turning me away from my father, God forgave me. And the woman is no longer my God. Now I have self-control. But I was a beta male. I was just like everybody else. All men who are born through their mothers are betas at first, but you can overcome it by forgiving your mother so God can take the woman's nature away from your mindset.
So Dennis also asks, the player, the attaquero is basically a beta.
Absolutely. He's a beta because a man is not supposed to use the weakness of a woman. He's supposed to guide her, show her how to overcome that hell that's in her. But if you're not overcome the woman, you can't help but be a part of her hell. That's why you must return to the Father by overcoming your mothers. Women are evil. I don't think men understand the depths of how evil women are. Mothers and grandmothers, girlfriends and school teachers and these women in government, they are evil because Satan is their God and they cannot help it. And they need men to bring them out of their hell. That's why whenever a man listens to a woman, he suffers. You should never listen to a woman. You will suffer for that. Just like Adam suffered when he listened to Eve. When Adam listened to Eve, she made him fall away from his father and she became his God. She had listened to the serpent and he became her God. And so, but Christ came and he reversed that order. That's why when you return to the Father, your earthly father, you automatically return to God. That's the only way you're going to change. Otherwise, your nature will be that of the woman who is that of Satan. Are you going to go and forgive your mother?
Of course, I'm going to go and forgive my mother, except I'm going to go and do it just because you gave me this advice, because I do have great respect for you, Jesse. I really do. I really do. I'm not joking. I'm not being cynical.
I appreciate that. Well, it's the same problem around the world. It's not about race. It's not about color. It's not about male and female. It's good versus evil. And all who are born through the woman are born in sin, meaning they're born into anger. And the only way you're going to start a new generation, you must forgive your mothers so that God can forgive you. And then you will start a generation of love rather than a generation of hate. And then they will start to see things get better on earth. But you got to forgive her so that you can overcome her nature.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Thanks to your team. Thanks to you for accepting my invitation, for being so informative, for being so spontaneous, for being so conversational. And thank you for all your work you've been doing for 30 years and more. Thank you once again.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, because you too, you're helping to get the truth out around the world, because all men are dealing with the same thing. It doesn't matter how rich, how poor, what color you are, where you live. I deal with work with men in Africa, in Europe, Canada, Australia, all around the world, because it's the same thing. They got to overcome their mothers, and they didn't understand it until they heard someone say, hey, you need to forgive your mothers, because the world has, the women have the world thinking that it's the father that's the problem, but it's really not the father, it's the mother. The evil comes through the mother, not through the father. And men don't understand that until they overcome their mother. So I really appreciate you helping me get the truth out there.
I appreciate for coming to my podcast.
Absolutely.
Thank you once again.
And have the folks go, have them go to rebuildingtheman.com, rebuildingtheman.com, or jesseleepeterson.com.
On my YouTube stream, you already have in the description all the links to
okay.
You can follow Jesse on all his platforms. You can check it there.
Will you let me know when you after you deal with your mother?
I will let you know, and I hope I can invite you some other time.
And I want you to ask your father, hey, Dad, why did you protect me from my mother? And you'll see that he couldn't help it. He was married to his mother.
Yeah, I will do that, and I will let you know. I promise. I promise.
All right.
Okay.
Happy Man History Month, and thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming to my podcast. Goodbye, and see you soon, hopefully. I will let you know when I forgive my mother.
All right. Thank you, buddy. I wish you well.
Bye.
Bye
It was
now.
amazing.
Amazing.